In the last session, we have created the first Spring Boot application, and we have added the Spring Boot starter web, and we have gone through the form.xml. Okay, and let in this lesson, what we will be doing is we will be running a Spring Boot application. Okay, we'll be writing a controller, and we'll be exposing an endpoint. We'll be using a Postman, and we'll be making a call to that endpoint, and we'll be getting the data. We'll be returning the response. Postman will be returning the response. Okay. So first, let's run the Spring Boot application. In order to run the Spring Boot application, you have to go to the Spring Boot API application.java. Okay. So this is the center point where you want to run your Spring Boot application. So run it, right click, run as Java, not Java, Spring Boot application. Okay. So now your Spring Boot application will start it. Okay. See here, I'll show you. See, the Spring Boot application will start, and here, as the application doesn't have anything, it started very quickly. It is taking 3.03 seconds to start the Spring Boot application. Okay. The Spring Boot application started now. Okay. So here I'll explain you a few things over here. Let me maximize this one. In your Spring Boot application, when you run the Spring Boot application, these are the sum of loggers which is printing by the Spring Boot. The first, what it is saying, starting the first Spring Boot application using which version? Java 17 version. And here it is giving the PID. So normally it will be creating the unique ID for your for a user. So for me, it is creating this ID. Okay. For where exactly my project is stored? In this location, the project is stored, and when I run my Spring Boot application, it is generated the dot class files. When you run the Java applications, by default, it will generate the dot class files. You can see the dot class files. No, not here. Okay. You can see the dot class files in the target folder normally. Let's refresh it. Let's see if we have any generated dot class files in it. So normally it's used to generate it. Okay, let's see if it is generated or not. So if it is not, we'll write one more controller. So in the control, when we compile the controller at that time, it will generate the dot class file. So as of now, it is not created any dot class files. So where it is storing the dot class files? In our target folder, we will be seeing the dot class files. Normally, and the second line, what it is saying, Spring Boot doesn't set the profile. Normally, see here, we will be having we will be running the application in different profiles and different environments. Here, active profile in the sense, so we have dev environment, we have prod environment, we have test environment, we have different types of environment. SAT are there. Okay, depends on the organization, they will be having the different environments. Okay, here I haven't set any environment. Okay, that's why it is saying that no active profile set. Okay, so default, it is taking the default profile. Profile is the default, and it is initializing the Tomcat on port 8080. So Tomcat initialized with port 8080, which means nothing but the Tomcat is initializing 8080 port for your first Spring Boot API application. So it is initialized the port. Okay, it is given the port. So initializing the port in the sense, it is saying that, okay, you are running the Spring Boot application, right? I have this port. You can use this port. You can run your Spring Boot application. You can, paste your Spring Boot application. You can deploy Spring Boot application on this port. Okay, you can access this Spring Boot application. In simple terms, I can say that you can access this Spring Boot application using this port. Now, what it is doing, it is once it is initializing, what it is doing, it is starting the Tomcat server. So it is starting the Tomcat server. Meanwhile, while starting the Tomcat server, it started the Servlet engine as well. Then initializing Spring Embedded Web Application context. I'll explain you that. And here the Tomcat started and port 8080 with context path as slash. So normally what exactly context path is? So normally if you want to context path is in the sense you can give the project name as your context path, which is nothing but, for example, let's say in this case http colon localhost. In this area only your Tomcat is running it. So this is normally the Tomcat URI, the Tomcat URL where you can access the Tomcat. Okay. And here you have to provide the context path. See here, context path could be your project name. Okay. If you are not initializing your context path in your application.properties, by default, it will be taking the context path as slash. Okay. So if you are define the context path, it will take the context path your project name. Whatever the context path you will give over there in your Spring application.properties here. In application.properties, whatever the context path you will give, the same context path will come over here. So after displaying the context path as forward slash or backward slash, then it is starting the first Spring Boot application. So it is displaying how much time it took to start the Spring Boot application. So once all done, so it is saying that the Spring Boot application is started, so on, so on, so. Now, I'll stop the Spring Boot application for time being. Now what I'm doing is, I'll be writing a simple controller. Okay, it's like a simple class, you can say that. Okay, I'll be writing some annotations to expose that class to the outside world. Not outside world, you can say that you can access in a Tomcat server. Using a Tomcat server, you can access it. Okay. So for example, everyone knows, right, that 1 minute. Everyone knows, right, the HTTP methods. Anyone know what are the HTTP methods we have? Okay. So what are the HTTP methods we have? Let's discuss that. What are the HTTP methods we have? HTTP methods we have. One is the first HTTP method is post. The first HTTP method is post. The second one is get. Third one is update. And fourth one is delete. And fifth one is what? Catch. These are the some of HTTP methods we have. If you go anywhere, these are the some of the HTTP methods we are using it. So what time you will be using post? What time you will be using get? What time you will be using update? What time? The similar way, what time you will be using delete and catch. See, if you want to add a data, if you want to add data, you can use post. Add data in the sense you can add a data to the repository, you can add data to the database, you can use post. So I'll give an example on this. Okay, I'll take a simple example on post, get, update, delete, and patch. So today I'll teach you get. Okay, tomorrow I'll teach you post, update, and day after tomorrow we'll discuss delete and patch. Okay, so first what it will do is add the data. So post, what it will do, it's add the data. You can use post to add the data, and get to retrieve the data. and update to update the existing data. I'll take a simple example. I'll take a simple analogy, a simple example to you. I'll explain. To delete existing data. To partially update the data. We will be using this when testing the functionality. We'll be using it to partially update the data. So now let's see. If you are using post, you will be adding the data. For example, you want to add a new entry. There is an employee table is there. Okay. The employee table you have, and you want to, it's similar to the SQL CRUD operations here. I can say that post is nothing but create. I'll tell you in this way. Post is nothing but create. Get is nothing but retrieve, select, that is select, and update is nothing but you have a SQL syntax, right? SQL queries, right? Update the existing data. Delete if you want to delete the existing record. Delete. If you want to partially update it, we'll be using patch. This is not there in the SQL. Okay. So you can relate to it. Post is nothing but create. Get is nothing but select. Update is nothing but updating the records. Delete, deleting the existing data. Patch, partially updating the data. Okay, fine. So now let's jump to the actual implementation. Now what I'm going to do is I'll be writing a simple REST client. Okay. So I'll expose this. The REST client is like a hello. And this will be printing a simple message. Welcome to Spring Boot lessons. Okay. So that is my simple message. Okay. For this, I'll be creating a simple controller. I'll be creating a simple class first. I'll tell you. I'll be creating a simple class. Let's come over here. Source main Java. New. Let me create a class. So I'll be giving my class name as hello controller. Okay. And my package name is, I want to store the controller related classes in a package called controllers. Okay. Fine. So let's click on finish. It's a simple Java class. You can see here. Every class will be having a class and the name of the class. Fine. Now, the main thing fall over here. Now, this is a normal class and we have given the name as a controller. Okay. So, by just giving the name, it won't be acting as a controller. So, what exactly the work of controller is? Whenever we are sending the request from the postman, first it will come to the dispatcher servlet. You can't see the dispatcher servlet. Just assume that we have a dispatcher servlet in between. First, it will come to the dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will decide the request will go to the what controller class. So it will come to the request will come to the controller. The controller will execute the request and return back the response back to the postman again. From the dispatch, through the dispatch servlet only it will do. But you can't see this dispatch servlet. Okay, let me omit this one. Why confusion? Okay, whenever you are sending the request come to the controller. Okay, let's say the request come to the controller will process your request and it will return the response back. And it will return the response back. In our case, from our Postman, we are firing a request to the hello endpoint. So this is a hello endpoint. Okay. And I'll be writing the complete URL http colon double slash localhost colon 8080 is the port where we are running our application. And I am giving the endpoint hello. That's it. Okay. So when you call to this endpoint from your postman, it will check for this endpoint. This is the base URL for everything. This is the endpoint you are sending a request. So it will find the respected endpoint using the handler mapping. So internally, you never know that. So DispatcherServlet will be like whenever the request is coming to the postman will be sending the request to the DispatcherServlet. DispatcherServlet will be this is the DispatcherServlet. DispatcherServlet will hand over to the handler mapper. So what the handler mapper work is, it will be having all the endpoint details, like hello world. For example, here we have a hello. Okay, so this detail will be having by the handler mapper. The handler mapper, what it will do, it will call to the respected endpoint where this endpoint is available. Let's say, for example, in hello controller. In this hello controller, that hello endpoint is available. It will directly go to that method. The method which is like mapping to that endpoint, it will go to that method. It will execute the endpoint. Now, this is what we are going to do. This is what the controller, the DispatcherServlet will go and execute the things. Now, let's come to our programmatic point of view. Let me write the program. Let me show you to you how it is happening. Okay. So, okay, fine. So now I want to give this class details to the controller. So I'll be give this class details to the DispatcherServlet. The DispatcherServlet will give this class details to the handler mapper. So when I annotate with that controller, by default, the DispatcherServlet, by default, the Spring Boot will automatically read this annotation and it will create an object of this hello world controller and it will give it to the DispatcherServlet. So whenever needed, the Spring Boot will give to the DispatcherServlet will make a give it to the handler mapper will call to the method which is residing in this location. So for example, let's say I want to execute hello world. There is a method called hello world and which is returning some string. Okay. And the method is access specifier is public. And here you are saying return hello, or I'll say welcome to Spring Boot lectures. Now at the top, what you have to do. So this is what type of request? It is a GET request. It is a GET request. So you have to use GET mapping annotation. If it is a GET request, you can use GET mapping annotation. Okay. So what is the endpoint? I said hello is the endpoint. I want to add it. So that's why I've added hello. Okay. So whenever let's catch the flow. So whenever we are sending a request from the postman, first it will internally it will have this operation will happen. The handler mapper will be having the hello controller details. So hello controller will be having so handler mapping is, it's kind of like, it's kind of key value map. It's kind of a map. So here it is having a hello. Hello is an endpointer. Okay. Let's say that hello. Okay. Hello is a endpoint and it will directly go to the hello controller and it will be executing the hello. Fine. No doubts, right? So now here what I have done is I have created a simple hello controller class, and not to make this simple, not to make the plain Java class as a controller, what I did is I have added a controller annotation. or you can, there is a one more annotation as well. So you can use either at controller or you can use the rest controller as well. Okay. So I'll tell you what is the difference between the at controller and a at rest controller. Okay. So as of now, just give the at controller. So I have changed the controller to rest controller. I'll explain you the difference between the controller and rest controller. Okay. So fine. As of now, I have given the rest controller. So now let me go here. Let me go here. Let me restart the application. We have already stopped it, right? Let me start the application. Now, okay. Let me start the application. Run as Spring Boot application. The Spring Boot application will start on Tomcat, 8080, port number 8080. Okay. So now let's come to the Postman. I have a Postman handy with me. So you can download the Postman from the Google. Okay. And start using the Postman from today. Close this one. Here I'll change this URL to hello. Let's fire up the request. Let's see. So it says method not allowed. It is a post. I have given the post as the endpoint. Sorry, the method type. But I need a get, right. See, my controller is having a endpoint, get endpoint. So which is hello. Okay, if I give post, it is directly saying that method not allowed. It is there. The particular endpoint is already there, but you are, instead of making a get call, you are making a post call. Okay, so do a get call. Now let's see. Let's send the request. Now let's see here. We are getting the data. So welcome to SB lectures. Similarly, you can create one more endpoint and try to access the endpoint. Now what I'll do is I'll give the context path. So before I haven't given the context path in my application.properties. Now I'll be giving the context path. So I'll give context path server.servlet context path. So I'll be giving the context path as slash first hyphen app. Okay, save it and close it and rerun it. Because why I'm rerunning it? I don't have the dev tools in my pom.xml file. So we'll be learning about the dev tools by tomorrow. As of now, just rerun your application. Get inside this one and run as Spring Boot application. You can use shortcut keys and you can run the Spring Boot application as well. There is no harm in that as well. Okay, let's see. See, before it was given the context path as only slash. Now, when I added the context path, what it is giving? First hyphen app. Okay, now our URL will be changing now. So before we are just adding the hello, now we will be adding the first app. First hyphen app slash hello. Now let's send the request. See, the same result we are getting it. I hope you got it. Okay. That's all for today. We will be learning the other things by tomorrow. Till then, thank you.